Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. It is March 29th. It is a leap year, so welcome. Hope you all are having a great day. So this is a special live stream, episode 7 now of Protect the Kids, and I'll be welcoming our guest on here in a second. I just want to recap a bit the 6 live streams that we have had. Bear with me. Let me get this back up. The 6 live streams that we have had so far, they've been extremely transformative. Some very, very powerful voices who are looking to protect children from gender ideology. We kicked it off with Jeff Cleghorn, followed by Jeanette Cooper of Partners for Ethical Care, January Littlejohn, Dr. Quentin Van Meter, Sarah Higdon, and then yesterday, Christine Rebstock. And while the feedback from all of you has been so amazing, and what is great is there is excellent work being done by speaking truths, by sharing resources, and the messages we have been receiving from families who are so hungry for ethical care, compassionate care of their child or family member. It's been overwhelming. And so that has been, I mean, it's hard to not get emotional about it, but that has been just the most beautiful outcome to this effort by Awake Illinois, by all these organizations and really good people that are speaking truth. So thanks for joining us on these live streams, and thank you for sharing. Feel free to comment on Facebook and Twitter, and if you have any questions, I'll be checking those. But I would like to preview, before I welcome our guest on, Nicolas Blooms. He spoke very courageously and very eloquently at an Illinois school board meeting a couple weeks ago. And so before welcoming him on, I want to share his remarks. They're a few minutes long, but I think they're very important for us to hear. And so I'm going to share those remarks for you to hear right now, and then we will welcome him on.
Nicolas Blooms.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nicolas, a detransitioner here on behalf of Gays Against Groomers, a fabulous nonprofit organization of gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and trans people with the sole mission to stop the medicalization, sexualization, and indoctrination of children under the guise of LGBTQIA. We appreciate being invited to speak on the issue of the bulletin board up in the main hallway. We are aware that most of the kids in school pass through pride flag and transgender flag colors represented in parts allegedly promoting inclusion and love. This should not be happening in a school setting. No one in this room is going to deny that our duty as adults is to protect children from harm. To pure children, heart-shaped rainbows may look harmless. To critical thinking adults, we see a harmful agenda hidden in plain sight. There is no child on this earth that can possibly know themselves fully. Kids are meant to explore, never to be confined in a box. Teaching kids about transgender ideologies and sexualities at school distorts and steals their precious journey of self-expression and exploration. Pinning up hearts colored with pride and transgender flags is shallow and does not teach children love and inclusion. It has the opposite effect. From age 15, I was physically, mentally, and emotionally harmed by trans ideology. Claiming a false label as gender fluid and non-binary, my internalized homophobia fixated on escaping my homosexuality. Gender identity temporarily relieves the never-ending feeling something is wrong with me. What I believed to be my savior was actually my killer. Gender confusion intensified my self-hatred and gender dysphoria, and severed my connection from my biological male body. Years of despising my Adam's apple, hours upon hours of plucking body and facial hair, severely cringing over my feminine voice and my genitals. All the self-hate tunneled my vision to finalize my decision to medically transition. In other words, I trans the gay away. With the same love and inclusion mentality, all friends and family never pushed back, not even for a second, on my gender identity nor medical transition. Medical practitioners and endocrinologists allowed me to medically transition without having my traumatic experiences investigated. Love and inclusivity paved a disastrous path of self-obliteration and perversion to my healthy male body. It took me 8 years of gender confusion and 3 tumultuous years of self-reflection to finally detransition and accept myself as a feminine gay man. I didn't need more rainbow flags and pronoun badges. Actually, I needed to be shown how to love myself as I am. What if internalized homophobia or prejudice towards others could not be fixed by heart-shaped rainbows? Transgender ideology serves no one, and especially harms young ones. Love and inclusivity is dangerous, for it can poison people to suppress their true selves. I invite teachers, parents, and board members to explore and expand your creativity to new remedies that nurture children's inner resilience. We believe in you.
Just amazing. So amazing. So it is my pleasure to welcome that speaker from Manhattan School Board District, Nicolas Blooms. Hello, Nicholas.
Wow.
Welcome.
I'm so honored to be here. I'm so like, wow, I said that. Like I'm amazed by myself.
Well, you should be, and you have had quite the journey, and those were very powerful remarks because you destroyed in just a few minutes the narrative that is being pushed across schools, across social media, across mainstream media, pop culture, the lie that this ideology will help children such as yourself. So I think this is just a really great opportunity for you to educate Illinois and anyone who is watching this as to what your story is. And then we're going to talk a bit about some of the nuances of what is happening here in Illinois with, for example, Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, and some of how this ideology is being pushed. And then a resource, a book that you have written that is meant to empower people who may be dealing with the same struggles that you dealt with. So just tell us, Nicholas, about you and some of your past and what has brought you to this point.
Wow, that is a loaded question. As you've seen the video, I'm a detransitioner that experienced a lot of internalized homophobia and trauma from living in a culture that, well, I was raised in Okinawa, Japan. So that was a very much like culture that really didn't accept femininity in the biological male body. So from a young age, I was bullied for being feminine, and that developed into internalized homophobia because I am gay. And on top of like that two combo eventually developed into body dysmorphia to the point where I found out about gender ideology around the age 15, so in around early high school,
Mhm.
on YouTube. So there was a lot of digital influences to the point where I was like, oh, this is so alluring. This is so glorious and beautiful. It really predicated on my wounds that needed love instead of all this belief that I need to change myself, that I need to be a different gender in order to be loved and accepted and be who I am. So it was very much like a trap that it took a very
Mhm.
long time to disconnect and detach from. So it's been a transformative journey from such a young age to where I am today. But I'm just grateful, as controversial as it can be to say this, I am just grateful that I went through the experience because now I get to see the truth in it, the darkness in it, and stand up in my resilience so that I can help people that are or were in the same spot to rise out of it.
Yes, and that is beautiful, and I think that you are very reflective of the hope and the positivity that is coming out of what was a dark time for you and many other detransitioners, and that is something that I want to be able to platform really is the hope, because there are families, there are kids who have been sold this lie, and so what's beautiful is that you have found such peace, and for you to be able to speak truth is going to help other people. That's the beauty of this. And you yourself have such a positive vibe to you, and I know that that's going to come across in this live stream as more and more people hear your voice. So I'm grateful for that, and thank you for bringing it to this issue. So obviously, in the wake of this filing of House Bill 4876, which we have been hammering, and it is getting crushed, and the lie of gender ideology is being crushed. You yourself really pursued, for example, hormone treatment. And so, why don't you speak to why you thought that that would effectively save you and where you realized that this was the wrong course of action for you?
Yeah, I'll just jump right in. So I want to say around junior year to up until senior year of high school, like suicide ideation was on my mind for day to day. And the body dysmorphia, which I thought was gender dysphoria at the time, was so intense. Like I didn't even want to leave the house at times. I was in front of a mirror, plucking at my facial hair, leg hair, all that for hours at a time. I would be pressing on my Adam's apple from the age of, I want to say 7, and that was a daily thing, just really wanting it to not be protrude out. I didn't even wanna see myself in the mirror. That was a really tough thing for me to see because every time I stepped in front of a mirror, it was as if I was looking at a monster, like, I call it, like, the gender dysphoria monster, and that
Mhm.
would really instill and activate the wounds that felt like, "I am unlovable, there's something wrong with me, I'm an abomination." So at some point, I remember I was on spring break my senior year of high school. I was in Arizona visiting my step grandma. We were just, I was all by myself, and my parents were off somewhere else. And I just remember sitting in the chair being like, I want to die. I want to kill myself because of all this gender dysphoria. So I took it as a sign that this is like medical transition is the only way that will heal this. Because I was so convinced through the digital influences, I was watching a
Mhm.
lot of trans YouTubers saying like 10 signs you're trans or
Mhm.
your reasons you should transition, all these things like very fixated on the idea of transition for I want to say about a year. So not only did that intensify my gender dysphoria, I was taking on their gender dysphoria by seeing like they were obsessing over like their brow bone protruding. So it was like, oh my God, I guess that makes me a man. I feel like I need to start fixating on hating that about myself because
Wow.
that's a manly thing. So I can't be I don't want to be a man. So I need to hate on the part of me that's becoming more that looks manly. So all this fixation, body dysmorphia, suicidal ideation, all cocktailed together in a spicy little drink made me transition, basically. I, that was the only message I was getting online through any social media platforms, Tumblr, YouTube, Twitter, all of that. The trans Discord was like medical transition is going to help you with body dysmorphia or gender dysphoria. So I took that as a sign
Wow.
as, alrighty, I am going to transition. And I also had a friend at the time that was super supportive of LGBT and also transitioning. So I told her like this is what I'm experiencing, and she said, "You, if I was in your position, I would transition." So I was
Mhm.
like, I really trusted her too. So taking in that advice, I there was just so much that made me that there were so many outside influences that made me want to transition or think that
Sure.
transition was the best option and the only
Sure.
option. So then I went to the Planned Parenthood online and it was just straightforward and easy from there.
Yeah, and so just talk a little bit about what was the experience of you talking to your parents about it? Because I know that this becomes like a family trauma more or less. Parents are, Chloe Cole talks about this and she's very graceful when it comes to talking about her parents. She doesn't blame her parents. She knows that what they were dealing with was very trying. They saw their daughter struggling and they were desperate. And they were sold a lie as much as she was. So what were your parents doing? And then bring us back to at what point you ended up actually going into a Planned Parenthood clinic.
Yes, that is a really good question. I want to start by saying I love my parents. And I could not have said that probably 5 years ago, right when I
Interesting.
was starting transition.
Mhm.
And, just like Chloe Cole, I don't blame my parents. There wasn't a lot of info that they could go off of to combat gender ideology, so I don't blame them at all. Like, this is a tough
Right.
issue, and
Sure.
I'm glad detransitioners are showing up now and to speak up, and people like you are speaking up and standing against gender ideology, so it's awesome. My relationship with my parents from the age of 13, probably even before that, up until starting hormones was tumultuous. There was lots of arguments, aggression, not a lot of peace and joy. I think it
Mm,
was from my part not being able to communicate the emotional world. Uh, so considering that, not speaking to my parents about my emotions, my thoughts, my concerns, it was very much like saying one word a day at most to my parents, or maybe a paragraph a week to them.
mm,
So they had no idea I wanted to transition. I mean, my parents did have suspicions because I was presenting feminine. Like I would paint my nails, I'd do my makeup here and there, but there was almost a little bit of resistance from them, being like, "Are you gender confused?" Because I did come out to them at some point, being like, "I am gender fluid." Telling them that, my dad was like, "Oh, he's gender confused." So that even made me wanna step away from talking to him or having that connection with him because it made me feel like he made me wrong at that age, and I was around 15, 16, somewhere around there.
wow.
So, there was so much tension between my parents and I. There was barely any connection. I wanted to do nothing with them. I didn't wanna be associated with them. I didn't wanna be around them. I didn't love them, didn't know how to love them, wanted
Mm,
to reject them.
mhm,
So from that space, this came to a like telling my dad that I wanted to go to Planned Parenthood was very abrupt and sudden. I
mm,
remember the night before going to Planned Parenthood, my dad came downstairs to say goodnight to me because I was sleeping in the basement at the time because we have a room there. He came downstairs, knocked on my door, being like, "Good night, Nicholas." I was like, "Dad, can I talk to you for a second?" I told him, "I need to take a day off from school tomorrow because I'm going to Planned Parenthood to start hormone replacement therapy." He was shocked. He didn't know how to respond. He didn't know what to say other than like, "Okay, let me think about this. I want to come with you because I want to support you. I don't know what to think about this yet." But he was hesitant, but willing to support and help me in any way he could because he knew I was going through a lot mentally. Not necessarily the whole picture, but like if you observe me, you could clearly tell like he's going through something. Like there's something going on in his head. So he wanted to help me and support me. So he told me the next day, like I could not sleep at all. And he's the type of person that has insomnia, so I probably intensified it that night by telling him this because it was like a bombshell, like, it went off
sure.
and he did not expect it, so,
Right,
it's a
right.
really intense thing to say, "I'm gonna become a woman," you know?
Right. Yeah, that's heavy. And I know that there are parents that are struggling with what is the best way to support my child if they are dealing with this confusion, right? If they are having suicidal thoughts. I understand the desperation of parents, which is why organizations are speaking up to try and connect them to the right resources instead of just taking this path that's going to create physical harm and not address the mental challenges that need to be addressed, right? So talk to us then. You're 18 at this point, and we're going to show some snapshots of the Planned Parenthood Illinois website. But talk to us about what it was like to walk into Planned Parenthood. Your dad was with you. Um, what was that like to go in and to pursue this point of getting hormones?
Well, at first it felt like relief. The whole experience of, as soon as I signed up for an appointment with Planned Parenthood, it felt like relief. It's like, oh my God, finally I have some direction. Finally, this is the light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe this will make me feel better. Just because I was desperate for anything because I was looking for a quick fix. I didn't know any other way because that's the
Right.
mentality in the Western world. Quick fixes through drugs,
Yes, quick
anything like that.
fixes. Hmm.
So that was my way. So I walked into Parenthood with my dad. On the way to Planned Parenthood, we didn't really exchange any words. We were just both nervous and unsure what was going to happen. So we walk in. It looks like a doctor's office. It's pretty plain. So we're waiting for the counselor that's supposed to talk to us for 30 minutes. I guess I was expecting to get prescribed hormone replacement therapy that day, but I wasn't. So I was anxious because I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna be starting hormones today." And so we got called by the counselor to go into the room. She sits us down. She's sitting across from us, and my dad and I are side by side. She's asking me some questions like, "Why do you feel like this is going to help you? What are you experiencing? What are your thoughts? Like, what are you feeling?" So I relate to her. I'm experiencing a lot of gender dysphoria. I'm plucking my body hair. I hate my voice. I hate my Adam's apple. Talking to her about how crazy I feel, how much suicidal ideation is happening. Just really telling her all about this. Not even for a second does she ever go into my trauma, my past, my history, anything that a psychotherapist should look into or even a psychiatrist should look into to see like if this is the best option. All she did was see if I had gender dysphoria, which honestly I don't think it's just the fine line between body dysmorphia and gender dysphoria. So it's just she wasn't really looking into the deeper issue, the root cause. So
Right.
my dad was awesome by being hesitant me and pushing back a little bit in the conversation. But at the same time, I don't think he knew the questions to ask because, like, what questions do you ask when your kid is transitioning and having all these suicidal thoughts? And I think it was the first time he heard I was experiencing all this gender dysphoria. I don't think he knew what it meant to be gender confused. I don't
Mm,
think he knew it at all.
mm,
So I feel like I can just sense my dad, like just being frozen and not sure what to
mhm.
do.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I don't blame him for this because being a lead, I think what I needed was a leader to guide me in life, and it's okay that he couldn't do that for me because, like, what parent does with gender dysphoria? What parent does when a child is going through a gender confusion? So I don't blame him. So that was kind of like the whole experience. There was no exploration of my past and traumas.
And how long was that appointment?
30 minutes, maybe less.
30 minutes. And that was what got you the hormones. 30-minute appointment.
Yeah, I think I think she had a clipboard and she was writing things down and she was also giving advice of like you should meet with a regular therapist after this. And she gave me some contacts and stuff like that. Um, and then she was like, "Okay, you're gonna be starting hormone replacement therapy. Come back in 2 weeks." She was. I think the thing about this lady was she was like a little bit older, maybe like in her 50s to 60s. So that was like my that softened me to be like, okay, like I'm getting help from someone that actually cares. She put on this aura of, I care about you. I want to be here for you. It's
Mm,
very misleading. Um,
interesting.
yeah,
That is
so
wild. And you went on hormones then in a matter of weeks.
2 weeks. Not, I didn't meet for another, therapy appointment. Didn't get checked off by a psychiatrist. It was just like, here you go. This is the plan. And there wasn't anything else after the second Planned Parenthood meeting at either, like getting my
No, because
prescription.
they got everything they needed out of you. I'm sorry, Nicholas. They found a subject to push into the pipeline. So check that box on to the next. I mean, I think that this is just like a total cattle call of how many poor souls who, as you have said, mental illness and struggles go totally ignored and untreated, and you're pushed into the pipeline of medicalization and pharmaceuticals. And unfortunately, you thought at the time that trans would heal you. So over the course of this journey, when did you realize this is not healing me and this is this is not the right course. This is wrong.
Yeah, so I would say there were like at least 3 or 4 waves of doubt where
Mm,
I think the summer, like this was a month or a few weeks before going to art and design school in Milwaukee.
mm,
I remember this one day where I was in the dark and just spiraling in my thoughts, being like, did I make the right choice? Do I actually have gender dysphoria? Should I be transitioning? Should I be on medication? And then my wounds were rationalized it with being like, these are just thoughts that show up when you're uncomfortable about something new. okay to
Mm.
have these thoughts, so just let them go. You'll be fine. So kind of like rationalizing the fact that being trans was my solution so that I didn't have to dig deeper or become more uncomfortable. So that was one way. I think what actually made it worse was going to art and design school because literally everybody is trans and non-binary. So
Yeah, can we talk about that? Because I'm sorry to laugh, but it's just reached the realm of the absurd. And I spoke with you. I mean, I was in the performing arts too. No stranger in that craft for the gay community, eccentricity, just, free to be. But it has clearly leapt into this contagion. And you said there was a survey done at your school. And what was the result of that survey asking students about sex, sexuality, gender identity? What was the
yeah,
result?
so trans and non-binary were around the percentage of like 40 to 50%, and then LGBT or LGB, like the gay people were, I want to say like 80%. So I was like,
So the Milwaukee School of Art and Design has literally every single homosexual in the country. Like they're a hub of everyone. Every homosexual in the country is now at the Milwaukee School of Art and Design. I
it's
mean, come
insane.
on. What? So what was your thought in observing this culture, this trans culture, and this trans activism? What was the atmosphere like there?
So when I was trans, it was actually comforting. It almost made me feel like, oh, now I'm normal. Like I love feeling special and different. And I think being trans took that away because everybody was trans. So I'm like, okay, what's the point now? Not that I transitioned because I wanted to be special, but it was just like I felt like I fit in. Everybody was like, "What's your pronouns?" Like, oh my god, it was like a cult. We would like the first few
It is a
days of
cult because it is a cult, Nicholas.
well, like
Go ahead.
you would start the class with like, "Okay, guys, we're gonna go." Oh, I can't even say guys. Okay, y'all, we're gonna go. Because
Okay, I'm sorry.
it's binary. Um, and we would go around the classroom being like, okay, the teacher would be like, so we're gonna introduce ourselves, say your name and your pronouns. So we go all around the room. Half the classroom would be like they, them, or she. No, honestly, it'd be a little bit of people that were non-binary, but most people were like she, her, he, him. So it's just like, what's the point? So I think
Wait, so
some
time
of the
out. So that's what I think is so funny is I have yet to meet a person who has told me their pronouns that would have been any different from the typical English pronouns I would have assigned them to begin with. Maybe because I don't hang out with like Xerxes people because I'm not in the cult. But that is what is so ironic to me. It's this virtue signaling nonsense. But at any rate, okay, go ahead. So you found a cult climate here. Okay.
yeah, it, I think at the beginning I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like, um, and everybody has green hair, blue hair, pink hair. Like it was
Did you
like,
dye your hair in college?
oh yeah, I did. Like my roots were like pink, and then at some point I bleached the whole thing and then dyed it green and different colors. But everybody had a dress code. It was like this is the dress code to be unique, and it was just every corner I turned, everybody looked the same. So it was just like it started to.
Did it seem like it was conformity?
Oh, absolutely. But it was so weird because, everybody's trying to express themselves and be artists, but at the same time, I felt like they were hiding under a mask and not really showing up as themselves.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I was like, wow, I fit in here. Everybody's saying the chant, trans women are women. People are talking about non-binary. And this is like such a great space to be in. But then the pandemic hits, so I get sent home from college, and that's when like shit hits the fan. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here,
Fine, you're fine. Because
but
it did. It did hit the fan.
it did. So I couldn't go to school for a year or so. I did everything online. So from there, it was so great to have that because then the trans spell started to break. The
Mm,
allure of like, maybe I'm not trans because I started to get into spirituality and really understand self development, self discovery, and being like, wow, reflection is a thing. This is so
mm,
really cool. So diving into the realm of spirituality distracts me from transgender ideology, stepping away from the rhythms that trans women are women, the chants, all of that mentality was starting to be shifted away from me so I could focus on my internal system of what's going on with
Interesting.
my thoughts, what's going on with my wounding. So I would say it took about 3 years from then to really
Mm.
detransition, but during the time, I was not really interested in trans politics, not interested in the activism, not really engaged in that sphere because it was just like it felt so icky. I was like, I'm done with this. I need to move on. I'm
Mm.
trans, so I'm fine now. I've done this. But at the same time, taking this medication was so horrible to my mental health. Like the first
Mm.
year of college was like the suicide ideation was even more intensified. The
Really? So
depression
how long had you been on the, hormones at that point, by the
was
start of
like
college?
6 months.
6 months, and so the mental health challenges worsened.
Yeah, depression was more intense. Like I remember like having this feeling in my heart where it was like being wringed out to the point where I felt like I couldn't breathe because it was just so emotionally intense. Like that's how much the depression was in my body. Um, so I sought out some therapists. They were affirming in my gender identity, so there wasn't much exploration in that.
They were affirming it or they
Yeah,
weren't?
they were like, well, I don't think we really discussed being trans. They were more like, "Okay, you're trans, cool. Let's move on. What's going on in your life right now?" You know, it was brushed aside, not really talked about, or not even
Mm.
explored. So, because maybe I wasn't talking about it, so maybe they weren't facilitating that space, or not even knowing how to. It's not like I
Right.
went to go see a gender specialist or anything like that, because I was like, I want to be normal. I don't want to go to a gender specific thing. I just want to talk about my issues. So I think the self discovery thing opened me up to more feelings of doubt in my gender identity because I really connected with the mentality that my body is divine. It's literally a creation from Mother Earth. So why am I taking hormone medication that rejects nature? Because what it's doing
Mm.
is when I'm taking testosterone blockers, it's suppressing my natural testosterone. Why do I need to do that in order to find happiness if my body is so equipped to, you know, healing the cuts on my body, creating an endocrine system that regulates so much things that my mind doesn't know right now. And why is it that I think that taking these 2 pills is gonna heal me? It just was creating cognitive dissonance that
Mm.
I started to even visualize myself living off grid. Like, if I'm living off grid, I'm having, like, this own land separated from society, like, would I be on medication? Like, would I still be like a bearded woman? And it was very much, like, confusing because I was like, if I wanna live a natural life, I can't take medication. Like, it was just like, I can't do this anymore. So, I started digging into connecting with my endocrinologist, which my endocrinologist in Milwaukee, he was like he didn't even he didn't even need a waiver to be like, "Okay, you're trans." Like, it was just like, "Okay, you went to Planned Parenthood? Cool. Let's just keep this and trans medicine going." So
Wow.
um, he was still like, "Oh, you should still meet with a therapist," or every time we had a session, he would ask me if I'm meeting with a therapist, but never, ever, ever dove into, "Are you actually trans?"
Right,
So
so the therapy is like an à la carte almost. So, like, the gender affirming services, the hormones, all of that, the endocrinologist, that's like the steak on the plate. Like, that's their main focus, and then if you want a potato on the side or some broccoli, like, that's the mental health component, but that's just like an add-on. There's no real emphasis on actually addressing the mental health struggles, which to me is such it's just abhorrent. I think it's wicked.
it really is because, I mean, if I look back at it now, it was just like so much happening up here, and like they were they were trying to fix my body, but it wasn't really what I needed. I needed to
Oh,
decode what was going on with my perception with my body. Like, it was like this
yes.
connection was separated even more when I took hormone medication because the medication wasn't helping my body. It was helping my how my body looked, not how my mental health was. You know, it just
Right.
really intensified things. I remember it. would intensify my social anxiety as well. Like the anxiety was off the roots. I really wasn't experiencing a ton of anxiety until being on hormone medication because what it actually did was my gender dysphoria turned into, oh, I'm not woman enough now. Like it used to be like
Wow.
it went from, okay, I hate my body parts to like to now that I'm presenting women, wow, I don't pass as a woman. My voice doesn't sound feminine. My the way my posture is doesn't seem like a woman. I don't have breasts, so I don't look like a woman. And so all these things of um external imagery of how I'm supposed to be in the world was just that's was never addressed. It was never talked about. It was just yeah,
Wow.
it's
And
very
so
insane.
it is insane. And so at what point were you able to feel like you had fully left that lie of gender affirming hormone replacement therapy, all of that? At what point did that spell really truly break?
Um, so I love the truther content. Like that was what got me into like during the the whole pandemic. It was just like I got into this mentality of like, what's the truth? Like, should I be taking the vaccine or not? Like, is this right for me? Very much like what is happening in the world? Like
Questioning everything. Yeah.
who's running the Illuminati, all these things. And I was getting into that. So I was listening to this one spiritual leader who was a truther. To like she was giving truth about spirituality, but also like what's happening in the world, like is like all that. And she said plain out, transgender trans ideology is an agenda, like agenda pushed by the elites, people higher up that have lots of money. And I was like, hold on, what? I trust this lady and she's saying this to me, this, and I'm trans. Oh my god. Like my wounds were like shaken, like, oh my god, like this is my reality is so messed up. Like, what do I do? So from there, that was shattered. Like because I trusted
Wow.
this was the wisdom coming from this lady. So if she's been speaking truth to me this whole time, she must be speaking truth about this. So that really shook me to be like, yeah, I gotta examine this a little bit more. From there,
Interesting.
I also was listening to when that opened me up, I also saw that Blair White posted videos on detransitioners. And I remember watching Shapeshifter, who's my friend now, which is so crazy to think about that he's my friend. But I watched his interview with Blair White, and that blew my mind because a lot of what he said resonated with my story. My story was so parallel with his experience and how he transitioned, why he transitioned from a place of internalized homophobia. So
Mm.
that completely shattered my way my perception of transgender ideology was completely obliterated. So the next day after watching tons and tons of detransitioner videos, I just sat on the grass and I had my journal in my lap. I paused and I asked myself, what's been suppressed that needs to be expressed? And then I felt this sort of despair just show up in my chest and just started writing. Started writing about like how this inner child had not been seen for so long, like the
Mm.
how the perception of how my voice was, too feminine, too ugly, how my body hair, how I perceive my body hair, all this was coming from my wounds and misinterpreted as gender dysphoria. They were just wounds that needed to be loved, needed to be tended to. They weren't
Mm.
addressed and they were actually formulated to be perceived into this is why you're trans. And it actually was so confirming to me when I was writing automatically like, wow, I made a mistake. I'm not trans. I need to
Mm.
detransition. I need to get off the medication immediately because I made a complete and awful mistake to harm my body this way.
Wow. And so what is working for you now in terms of really addressing the struggles that you are overcoming and now empowering others to rise above? What was the ultimate positive course for you? Obviously, you needed that awakening and you needed to channel that and be truthful to yourself. You had to do that on your own. But what is working for you now?
Oof, I love breathing, so breathing for sure.
Breathing works.
Um,
I recommend it.
Like you can't live without air.
Oh, you need oxygen.
So I would say start there. Um, so a lot has like came into fruition into my life. I remember when I finally just chose to detransition, it took a month to really come to the conciseness like detransition is my option. And this is where I want to go because, you know, once you change your name legally and tell all your friends and family that you're trans, and then being like, oh, I'm actually not, that is intense and that can be scary because tell like admitting that you've made a mistake is just, it can be scary. So it took a month to
Yeah.
really come to a realization like this is what I need to do. And I remember I had a nightmare of posting a video of myself having choosing to detransition and getting so much hate for it. So the next morning I woke up and I was like, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to conquer my fear and speak about my detransition and post it on YouTube. And a month later, I got a lot of views. Shapeshifter, who's a detransitioner, put it on his Twitter and that blew up a little bit. So from there, I had a lady from Arizona. She's my friend, and we created a children's book series together now called "You Can't See My Smile." I am resilient, teaching kids to build their inner resilience from a young age. So she reached out to me out of nowhere, being like, "Hey, I think you're saying something so profound, speaking from your heart and connecting with your
Mhm.
soul." So
Yeah.
we started having this mentor relationship where she has guided me to the point through realizing I am not my wounds, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions. I am the experience. I am experiencing all those things, but that doesn't define me. So detaching from my wounds, learning to love my wounds, having compassion for my past and past selves have given me a chance to really soften and discover my gifts that the pain that I've experienced and learned to love is what I can share with the world. So
Yeah.
she has guided me to the point where I've risen up to the point where I'm like, oh, the world is magical, life is beautiful, and inspired me to create a graphic novel that has packed with my journey through transition to detransition and realizing the power of my soul. And when you harmonize with your soul, which is in your heart, you get to access truths like simple as like I am here on earth to experience life as a biological male. Like that is my truth as I came into my mom's womb and I left my mom's womb, like what I'm here to experience. And I was rejecting that for so long and come to a point where I accept it. And a lot of what can be helpful is so simple as those truths and learning why those are triggering you, learning why your femininity and your masculinity are triggering you to the point where you're creating disassociating with your biological body. So a lot of it has to do with learning to love the body parts, learning to listen to the traumas that we've been that have been neglected and not being seen so that they can actually start to relax because love cures anxiety. So that's been a lot of what's been going on, a lot of inner work, a lot of understanding my past and why I have had the beliefs that I've had to the point where now I can be doing this stuff because I would say a year ago I wouldn't be as swift and confident in speaking to you as I am today. So it's been a lot of that sort of work, connecting with my body, giving love to my body because when you're so disassociated and detached from your body and you're so stuck up here, you don't ever touch your body. And what's so important as physical people is that like contacting and giving like soothing massages to yourself just like doing this and or even like holding yourself like this is so calming to the nervous system because
Mhm.
when our triggers are activated the nervous system goes into such a I think it's called like parasympathetic or sympathetic, I don't remember the name, but it's like so activated that it can't relax. But doing like these gentle exercises that are so simple and you can do it at any moment of the day to just be like, I see you. I see that you're feeling anxious. I see that you're feeling sad and just really giving that nurturance is what I've been
Yeah.
practicing.
It's interesting you mentioned that because Jeanette Cooper with Partners for Ethical Care, they're an organization that empowers people who are dealing with body dysphoria, with all of this gender ideology, just gives them some really good resources. And she talks about triggers, and she talks about that like touching therapy and connecting with oneself. Nowhere in that is it suggested you turn to your smartphone or social media to soothe yourself, right? It's all about just that peace and connection with yourself and finding peace in healthy ways. And that may look different for different people, but I think it's interesting that she, as a co-founder of this Partners for Ethical Care, has talked about those triggers and how to find resilience and that the fight or flight will pass, right, of that nervous system reaction. So we're going to get to the book, the beautiful book and the illustrations you've written. I just want to kind of give people first an understanding of what could be happening with children and or young adults who are going to Planned Parenthood of Illinois. So this is directly off of their website, Planned Parenthood of Illinois, and we're going to have all of these links available in the blog post recap. But they say that they are proud to care. And Planned Parenthood of Illinois is proud to provide gender-affirming hormone therapy, GAHT for short, to transgender, non-binary, and gender-expansive folks aged 16 and up. Gender-affirming hormone therapy services are available at all Planned Parenthood Illinois health centers statewide and via telehealth. So your experience was at 18 going with your dad, but this can start as young as 16. And currently, the way they have it outlined is that looking at their number 4 there, meet with their social services team. If you're 16 or 17, you'll meet with our behavioral health team before seeing a medical provider. Clinician will discuss gender-affirming hormone therapy and assess if further support is needed. All legal guardians must attend the visit and the first clinical appointment to sign a medical consent. What really worries us is, number one, that parents like your father and many others are going to be so overwhelmed, they're not going to even know how to talk to the truth of this therapy with their child. So that's why we have encouraged people to look at the resources we've shared, to listen to these live streams, to really have a comprehensive understanding of what's at stake, including Dr. Quentin Van Meter's remarks, pediatric endocrinologist, who has said to children, you cannot change your biological sex. Most children have not even been counseled on that basic biological truth. They are just affirmed through all of these lies. And so our hope and our prayer is that parents are going to understand the truth so that they can coach and mentor their children so that they are not consenting to be part of this lie. But House Bill 4876, which we have been hammering, right? Rep. Anstava Murray, who thinks that this should be the standard, gender affirming services should be the standard. It would criminalize parents who do not go with their child to partake in this lie, this wicked lie of gender affirming services. So that is why this bill is extremely radical. Parents should not be criminalized for objecting to this Planned Parenthood falsehood of gender affirmation, because to your point, 30-minute appointment, and within days you're getting harmful hormone treatments that at such a young age is disrupting puberty. It's disrupting the normal function of growing children whose brains haven't fully formed, whose thyroid haven't fully formed. Their hormones are still, very much needed to become healthy bodies. And so this to me is just very insightful. People need to see that this is happening. They also show Planned Parenthood of Illinois gender affirming surgical surgeons that are performing these gender affirming surgeries, and it's is defined, if you can see here, is defined as medically necessary by the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, known as WPATH, acronym for short. WPATH is wicked. The W is really for wicked. They have been selling a lie around the world, and that lie has actually stopped out of Tavistock. They closed their gender clinic in the UK because of, quote, failure of care. So look back, proud to care. Well, guess what? This care they're purporting is a failure. It failed in the UK. It's going to fail here. And it's just a matter of how many children and how many parents we can empower to not be a statistic in what is going to be stopped here. It will be stopped here. It's going to take lawsuits. It's going to take hitting people in the pocketbook, and it will get there. But if we can empower people, Nicholas, to stop it before it's too late, I just want people to know Planned Parenthood is complicit in this wicked, wicked lie. And also the ACLU. You know, they are very much entrenched in radical comprehensive sexual education. I've talked about the school district in which you live, the school districts around the state that have adopted radical comprehensive sexual education. So children as young as 5 years old could be having discussions on trans ideology. This is chaos, this is confusion, this is harmful. And the ACLU put together a comprehensive guide to sex education in Illinois. It's called The Talk. I have all of this linked. But take a look. You mentioned the pronouns. Everyone has their pronouns there. Look, I think the only one that doesn't match their biological sex would I don't know, the they them Adam.
Device. Yeah, that's the man.
And then Dawn, she, her, she's a big name in getting all of the Lurie Children's Hospital gender resources to schools. She's a big, she has been one of the top names in the public records requests that we have seen.
Oh
so these are the people doing this, but I think this is really interesting. I'm going to click to this page. It's page 5 of this manual, The Talk. And let me go down to the actual page here and let me zoom in on that.
All these flags are so ugly.
Yeah, talk to me about what you think about the flags.
Oh my god, I don't even like the pride flag anymore. Like, it's just like, I'm gay and I don't even want it because it's just so ugly. Like all the different colors, like the diversity, and then now there's like the autism stuff. It's just I don't want to see it. And also the non-binary.
Well, now it's the Ukraine. Now they've also got the Ukraine flag on there, the trans flag. It's like, so this page, gender identity is different than the sex you are assigned at birth. It is your own personal sense of identity, blah, blah, blah. Gender expression, transition. So this is in a packet that could be introduced into schools that are adopting comprehensive sexual education, gender ideology, trans ideology. Transition refers to the process of bringing one's outward expression of gender more closely into alignment with one's gender identity. For some people, this might include social transitions, such as using names or pronouns, wearing clothing, or styling their hair in a way that is typically associated with gender identity. Some people might medically transition, which could include hormone treatment, puberty blockers, or different surgeries. This can also include a legal transition where someone legally changes their name or gender marker on their identification to match their gender identity. And here's some helpful gender identity terms to know. Agender. I've never even heard that before. I've never seen this flag before. Someone who doesn't identify with a specific gender or someone who lacks a connection to gender. Non-binary, transgender, and then cisgender. I'm often labeled cisgender. Because I identify as a biological female. So people will say I am a cis woman. Lord have mercy. Gender nonconforming and queer. Remember, look right here. Gender identity is a spectrum. The only person that can define your gender identity is you. So this is part of the ACLU. Look at all of that. Lord have mercy. Demisexual.
Do you know, like, what is the age group for this?
So this is well, K through 12 is the national sex education standards. This one I think they do have is showing 6. Let me go back. 6 through 12. Let's go to the top.
No, that's
so
disgusting.
the talk. Okay, so the talk explores the Keeping Youth Safe and Healthy Act, creates personal health safety standards for K through 5th, and then updates and expands in 6 through 12. So K through 12. And through this zine, whatever they call that, it's for focused 6th through 12th in this one, this particular one. So yeah, 6th through 12th grade can get into all of this nonsense, this wicked nonsense.
Like, they don't even need the sexualities on there, just because if you think about it, most people are straight and, you know, not even the trans stuff. So, like, why would they need to know all this information? It's not helpful. The
Ace, why would a 6th grader, 6th graders are 10, 11, an umbrella term to describe identities where someone doesn't experience sexual or romantic attraction.
Oh my god. Like, yeah. I don't think a 6th grader needs to know that at all. Disgusting.
So you're saying this wouldn't have helped you? You're a bigot. You're a bigot, Nicholas.
Oh my god, don't say that.
The ACLU would call you a bigot for you as a gay man, to how dare you blaspheme
Wouldn't that
against
be
this.
homophobic on their part? Like, if they start calling me a bigot, I'd be like, "You're homophobic."
I know. I'm sorry. You have to
It's
laugh
so
because
backwards.
it's so evil. So there's that. And so the ACLU, the reason I bring that up, let me go back to the other screen, is because they are very upset over what has happened in Indiana this week. They tweeted, ACLU Out of Indiana, we and our clients consider our next steps. We want all transgender youth in Indiana to know that this fight is far from over, and we will continue to challenge this law until it is permanently defeated and Indiana is made a safer place to raise a family. We crossed out safer and changed it to evil, and crossed out raise every family to say mutilate and sterilize children. So we fixed the tweet for you, ACLU. You want to make Indiana an evil place to mutilate and sterilize children. Boom, you're the problem. Every school district in the state of Illinois should reject the national sex education standards because this is what they are pushing: confusion and harm to children. I'm done with this. And so is most of Illinois. So thank you, Rep. Stava Murray, for filing 4876, because we are crushing the lie that you are pushing in this state. And we're done with it, aren't we, Nicholas?
You go, Shannon. That was so good on fire.
Fire. And so other people bringing the fire, Laura Becker, she tweeted, she's a detransitioner. So she's going to share her story the week of Detransition Awareness Week, March 11th. So she tweeted the crankiness of the ACLU of Indiana. And her statement was, kids will grow up healthy in Indiana. And that's absolutely the truth, right, Nicholas? Working to protect children, to own their healthy, growing bodies, and to not mutilate them, not disrupt them, not sterilize them. Props to Courage as a Habit, a great partner in advocacy. Alvin and his team, they do such great work. What's really sad is that these pictures are very graphic. They're very hard to look at. These are biological females who have had their healthy breasts removed. And people need to see these pictures because this is the truth. This is not hyperbole. This is not tabloid. This is beyond Dylan Mulvaney nonsense. This is actually happening to children. And Courage as a Habit tweeted, it's a sad day for transgender child mutilation advocates such as the ACLU Indiana when this isn't allowed to happen to minors, right? Because this is disgusting. This is absolutely harmful what this is propagating, and we're done with it. And so, yeah, it's hard to see those pictures, but we owe it to these children because one child is one child too many. Something else we're going to be sharing, Meg Brock is doing an amazing job of publishing in the Daily Caller all of the nefarious realities to gender ideology, to gender affirmation services that are happening across the country. And so in her tweet, did you know there are no medical billing codes to describe detransitioners? And so she talks about how the medical industry is keeping detransitioners from getting crucial care. And this is really important because effectively, Nicholas, detransitioners are abandoned. So you got the 30-minute appointment at Planned Parenthood, you got your hormones, your mental health is worsening, your endocrine function is disrupted. And when you come into awareness that this is the wrong path, that this is actually harmful, as it turns out, they're not going to help you. They're not going to code you to get any medical help to get back on track when you opt to reject the harmful, wicked ideology that is being practiced in medicine. And so this article has been linked. And I think it's really important because unfortunately, it's very difficult for detransitioners to find endocrinologists, to find primary care doctors that are actually equipped to know how to handle this cohort, a growing cohort of people that need medical treatment and intervention in the wake of rejecting effectively hormone replacement therapy, et cetera. So that this is a really interesting article. So again, this terrible bill is actually in many ways a blessing for the state of Illinois because people of all political backgrounds, people of all walks of life are saying, hell no to mutilating and sterilizing children, and hell no to calling parents that have figured out the truth of this wicked lie, calling them abusers is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And so this has been an education opportunity for our state, Nicholas. And did you see this post that she had put forth? Did you see this? Okay, so I'll read it. I could read it in my sleep. I've read it so many times. She said, trans kids go through irreversible damage from a puberty that doesn't match their gender identity every day in this country. To ignore that damage further harms trans children and puts them at risk for the mental health issues you purport to care about. Giving access to life-saving, gender-affirming care should be the standard. She thinks this should be the standard. And she thinks a parent that would say no to their daughter getting their healthy breasts removed, she thinks that that is child abuse. This is child abuse.
Straight up. Yeah, I would not want to see my parents in jail because of because of my mental health, because it's all stemmed with like the mental health that's not even being addressed. Like when I see those photos, all I see is those kids are in so much pain, and they think that chopping off their body part is gonna give them that solution. It's just hard for me to see because I know what they're feeling, I know what they're going through, and to think that someone that's supposed to be advocating for us and wanting to create laws that help these kids is actually doing so much more harm. I feel sad. Like it's hard to watch this because within a few years there's going to be so many more detransitioners, and
Yeah.
she's just adding to it. She's just adding more fire to the craziness that this clown world has become. She shouldn't be doing this. She shouldn't be in the position where she is because she's putting this insane ideology, but
I
like thank
agree.
you. Thank you, like she's
Yeah.
doing this because it's shedding light on like the dark shit, the darkness
Yeah,
in the
it
world.
is. It is. And, people are starting to ask who's running against her because these are the people that we have put in power of policy making. Well, she actually does have a Republican running against her. She's a Democrat, and the Republican is Aaron Porter. And this is the 81st House District. So I think that people need to be paying very close attention to who they elect into office and asking the question of anyone seated and or running for office. What are your thoughts on House Bill 4876? How would you vote on that? Do you believe in mutilation and sterilization of children? Do you support radical sex ed in transgender conversations in kindergarten? Start getting these politicians on record because I'll tell you right now, they're scared. Well, good, they should be because this is a war on our children and you better know how to fight. Otherwise, you don't have the backbone to be in office. Get out. And I don't care if you're a Democrat, I don't care if you're a Republican, I don't care what you are. You better start getting on record because we, the people, are pissed. And we are upset with the silence because silence on this war on children is total complicity, in my opinion. So man and woman up.
Thank you.
I
Wow.
mean, I know you've manned up, but I'm just saying, like, come on, people, find your courage. So these are some of the things we covered in previous live streams. The slides are still in there. The youth outlook, the drop-in centers for gay youth, these chat rooms with ages 12 to 20 combined. I just think that this is incredibly misguided. I think it's making children more vulnerable to predation. So we covered that in some previous live streams. So Dr. Quentin Van Meter, the pediatric endocrinologist, this is a resource. All of these resources will be linked, but I think this is just a great opportunity to delve into your book right now, Nicholas. Let's talk about this. So your book, Trans to Detrans, let's walk through this because you are an artist. You have so much positivity, so much information to share. Let's go through this. And the link to the book and the link to your link tree is going to be shown at the end, but walk us through the impetus for this, and we'll go through I have all of the photos that you had sent me, so we can just walk through them. So let's talk
Yeah.
about this.
So I really wanted to showcase the trans to detransition very raw. I wanted to show parents that this is what your child may be going through. Like really get into the dark thoughts, really showing visually that this is what's happening in the inner world, because a parent is going to have a hard time understanding gender and gender ideology as well as the disconnect with your body if they've never experienced it. So like seeing it visually is so helpful, and that's my gift in this world, is showing imagery. So that's what I wanted to do, is showcase and help parents and also detransitioners, like you're not alone in this, and there is a path for you to heal gender dysphoria. It's totally possible to heal gender dysphoria without surgery, without medication, without
Yes.
any other sort of things that will permanently change your body.
Amen.
So I show that in a raw way that people can digest so simply and really feel into what it's like to have those loud internalized homophobic thoughts, to have the suicidal thoughts, to have that doubt of like, am I trans, am I not, and really going through this tumultuous journey together. I think the other thing is it's very inspiring. Like I've had a few people reach out to me being like, wow, this is inspired me to do this. This inspired me to create more. This inspired me to pursue music. So
Mm,
it's been really great for the feedback that I've received. And I had this
yeah,
one detransitioner say, wow, I've been sharing my story, but to see it visually and be reflected back to me is just so healing. So if you're looking
yeah,
for something like that, and if you want to share with your children, like, hey, healing gender dysphoria is totally possible, this is the book
yeah.
for you.
And let's be clear, you as a gay individual and an advocate for children, you're not incorporating strap-on dildos and sex props into your book, are you? Like some of these nonsense queer activists are pushing into schools. This book is age appropriate, and it has some beautiful pictures and graphics that tell your story. So let's go through some of these.
Well, before you
Talk about,
say that, I
yeah,
would say,
yeah,
like, this isn't geared towards, like, 10-year-olds to, like, maybe 16-year-olds, because like, there are some pages talking about, genitalia and, like, learning to love the genitalia, so I feel like it's not for younger
beautiful.
kids. Um,
Yes.
I just wanna make that distinction.
Good disclaimer, good disclaimer.
I So I feel like I've never seen someone say sitting with internalized homophobia. Like, I don't think I've ever read about it where people are like witnessing their internalized homophobia, like where it comes from, how it originated, and how it developed into a wounded way of thinking that turned into a belief system that, being gay is wrong, being feminine is wrong. So this is that imagery. Like, the star being is my soul observing the wounds on the right that's sitting on a pedal. It's like this memory being captured in a moment of time, and the soul is basically witnessing, and just witnessing in a sense of not making it wrong, that it's okay, that you're loved, and you can share how you're feeling and talk about your emotions from that time. So like, the soul is asking, like, what do you feel and what do you need to say, my love? Who hurt you? Let's ask the
Mm.
boys why they hurt you. So it just goes through a few questions of how I've been addressing connecting with my wounds and how I would speak to my wounds.
So
Not
this
this
is
not
what you sort of wish had maybe been happening in your life at a time when you were dealing with these struggles. This is
Oh,
what
absolutely.
in a perfect world would have the dialogue that would have been happening with you when
Yeah,
you were younger.
absolutely. Because when you're so disconnected from your parents and you don't wanna talk to them, you don't get to explore your emotional world at all. You don't get to talk about your emotions. So that's what I've been doing these last 3 or 4 years, is I'm learning how to do that now. And now I want to share that with people, like, you can do that, and you don't need to identify with your depression, your anxiety, your gender dysphoria.
Okay, beautiful. All right, let's keep going with these illustrations.
Oh, so this is a illustration of Um, so I was raised from the age of 6 to 13 in Okinawa, Japan. I'm English is my second language, so this is me traveling from Okinawa to America. In Okinawa, I was bullied for being feminine and gay from first grade up until sixth grade. So every single day, and this is me contemplating, like, oh, am I going to be bullied in America? Like, how are boys going to treat me? Am I going to be safe? So I incorporate like Japanese language on top of this illustration, as well as like the image on the right is me going into autopilot, because there were long periods of times where I've been autopilot, not thinking,
Mm.
or just you know, not present.
Just being withdrawn.
Just going through the rhythms of the day, not really caring or
Mhm.
thinking. This is a like how I give love to my voice. I for a long time was pressing on my Adam's apple, hating my Adam's apple. So the page before this is basically, yeah, an imagery of like really pressing on the Adam's apple, like really showing you the hate. Like
Mm.
it even says beware of evil Adam's apple, and on the arm it says suppress. And because I was doing that for a long time, I was never taught to how to show love to that body part. And that's what that previous page was, is giving love to the Adam's apple, being like, you're allowed to be here. You're allowed to be feminine. It's such a gift to be able to speak, like really be able to reverberate the voice that comes from my soul. Like, thank you for expressing that through
Yeah.
through me. Like, it's just like giving that sort of appreciation and love to the Adam's apple.
I found this page to be incredibly powerful just because I know that too many people are being pushed into this pipeline. And so this is going through your first visit with the Planned Parenthood quote counselor. I think it's interesting you put counselor in quotes. So walk us through this graphic.
Yeah, so this is back to when I was talking about the Planned Parenthood. I drew this counselor like very crazily because I like that's now how I always see her is like she this crazy lady prescribing hormone medication to vulnerable people. So it's just like she's asking, "Tell me what's going on," and then the next image is of me, you know, being very vulnerable, telling her about my deep, dark thoughts and why I wanna transition. I'm feeling sad and basically on the verge of crying. And then she's like, "Whoa, honey, we gotta start you on hormones ASAP."
And look at the
And
snake around. That's a very powerful visual, the snake and the like crazy eyes. You're clearly depicting somebody that I think you're making synonymous with insanity and with evil.
yeah, the snake, I was like, "She's evil." Like, prescribing someone at like, that's predation and very
Mhm.
malicious activity. So the 2 weeks later, I got this sheet with alongside the prescription of, says, "Effects and expected course of feminizing hormones." It gave me a list and a few pages of, like, what to expect in the next few months, what to expect in 2 years, and stuff like that. It didn't ever give me, like, the side effects long term. It was just like, oh, you might, uh, your sex drive is going to lower. I didn't know what that meant at all, like until you
Mhm.
actually experience it. So then I also got my medication, and then that's me at the bottom, like looking at the spironolactone and estradiol, just so excited.
Mm.
This is going to change my life forever, kind of excitement.
That's a powerful graphic. It really is.
Thank you. This is I feel like self-love can be so, you know, detached, like, it's just like, how do you imagine it? And this is how I visualize it. I was driving one day, and this poem just came through me, like, 'cause there was a wound within me that felt unlovable, so I was like, "Okay, if I were to show up as my soul, that's unconditional love, what would I say?" And it's just this, can you let me love you? Let me be that soaking force of juiciness that flows through your body to hug and kiss you and remind you of your worth. And it's just this heart, this love holding my body in unconditional love as love flows through and around me. So at the this is the last chapter of the book, which feels completely different from the rest of the book because it's so much more white space. I have like 20 to 30 pages of truth basically in how my soul learns to love the wounds. And this is how I've been practicing is I am the magical force that transcends all pain and suffering within my body. Like if I had that language and I learned to explore and use that into my life when I was thinking like trans and medicalization was the only option. And instead, if I had this, that and I could explore what that meant and how I could learn to love myself, like that would have completely taken me to a different trajectory. I wouldn't be talking to you today. That's how powerful I feel like the imagery can be. And this is the final truth. I am free to be me without synthetic hormones, surgeries, gender identity, societal expectations suppressing me. It's just, I feel like this was a page of complete liberation from trans ideology and the freedom to express my soul and live life without labels and going back to what it means to be free, excited, feminine, joyful, and playful. Oh, you're mute.
Thank you. So I was drinking coffee. I didn't want you to hear me gulping. So we have your book linked and people can check this out. And I think that this is just, I'm really grateful that you have found a way to channel your talents. Obviously, you're very artistically inclined and you've channeled effectively your challenges and your trauma into this positive book that could be empowering others. So, I want to just come back to, so we've had some amazing speakers, Dr. Quentin Van Meter, We had Jeanette Cooper. We had January Littlejohn, Jeff Cleghorn, Sarah Higdon, Christine Rebstock. And so, Nicholas, we have your link tree here where people will be able to click you, find all of your links, the book, podcast, other things that you're doing. And I look forward to seeing you be more of a force, really, in empowering youth, empowering parents, and all of these resources. We have the Church Transgender Response Guide, these books. There are so many resources for people to know the truth and to ethically guide their child or loved one on a path that will allow them to, you know, to awaken their soul, right? And to live with peace and to move beyond the trauma. So Ann Stava Marie may be trying to inflict trauma on the state, but the state is rejecting it. I wasn't able to look today at what we've had so far on the form that's coming through our website of emails to her and the Rules Committee, but it was more than 2,700 last night. So keep going. This is sending a very clear message without the bill having even been read yet, Nicholas, in committee, that we reject this agenda fully. We do not want to see this brought into the Capitol, into our policy making. We reject it completely. And so keep going. Our organization is here to help you protect children, to be empowered to preach the truth, to share resources and get involved, vote your values. And like I mentioned, Laura earlier, she's a detransitioner. She's going to be joining us on Monday, March 11th, as we kick off Detransitioner Awareness Week/Day. The day is March 12th. But she's another powerful voice going around the country to empower people on the truth, just like you are, Nicholas. And we're so glad your voices are in this fight. So stay tuned for more speakers. What are your final thoughts to people who may be in your situation, or parents, teachers, counselors? I mean, obviously you're on the record with your beautiful remarks from that school board meeting, but what is the top call of action that you have for people, or consideration, as we move forward to protect these kids from gender ideology?
I feel like it's inoculating gender identity from a young age. Like, I remember when our last conversation, like, inoculating gender identity, like, in the kids, so that they can realize, okay, I'm gonna live life as a biological female. I'm gonna live life as a biological male. Really instilling that, so that, and on top of that, building in resilience in kids, like teaching that feelings are fast, they don't last. Like my friend and I have these children's book teaching that, so that kids can really learn to navigate life without having those external things and needs. Like, they don't need the hormone medication to transition. They don't need that label. They don't need that to be part of that flag, that ugly flag, in order to mean something, be worth something, because they are worthy. So, like, really instilling that in their kids and building, like, that's what I recommend for parents when their kids are starting to go to school, like, because the K through K through 12, they're already exposed to all this. So I feel like just starting young is always great. Like, I
Yeah,
believe in
100%.
you.
I know. I think that's so positive. Yes, believing in people to do the right thing and to share resources that are ethical, that are truthful. I think you make a great school board candidate. So I think you should run for school board and get a seat at the policy table. But for now, I'm glad that you are, again, channeling your artistic talents into writing books and into talking to others and empowering them to feel whole and to find that peace. So we will have everything linked to your book and to your links for people to find you, Nicholas. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you. And so I'm grateful for your voice today. And there was something else I was going to offer about what we were talking about. Oh, yeah, inoculation. So something that we're going to be talking about more and more is, obviously, you've talked about the social media, the toxicity of it. I know that parents are increasingly looking to protect their children by delaying the smartphone, delaying the access to internet of young children, and, just trying to inoculate them and protect them. And then January Littlejohn says, her child was transitioned against their knowledge at a school. She's big on, if this is happening, you have to remove them from that school and put the full armor over them, because that is just too wicked of an agenda, and it's capturing children very swiftly. And with Planned Parenthood making their way into schools, Lurie Children's Hospital making their way into schools, this is just unfortunately happening. And so the sooner you can inoculate your child, the better. And so many different ways to empower families. And we're grateful for your voice. You're going to be, I think, a huge trailblazer on this issue. But for now, we thank you, Nicolas, and we will have all the links to your book and to finding you on the internet as well. So thank you,
It's
sir.
been such an
Yeah.
honor being here talking to you, like having a platform. Just I'm really grateful to speak about this. I'm very passionate about this and I can feel your passion. So I feel like together it was just like such a fiery explosion. It was so much fun.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll get together again soon and keep doing more advocacy work. I look forward to being a partner with you on that. But for now, thank you everyone for tuning in. Share this episode 7 with Nicolas Blooms, with your community contacts, with your parent groups, and onward to protect the children. Happy Leap Year Day, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.